Hello, ESTPs. Okay, so in this video I'm talking about ESTPs, some of their growth points, and their unique contribution to the world. ESTPs, just real quick, are so fun. Also incredibly charismatic. You know, they've got the thinking and feeling a little balanced, and that gives them a charm. Okay, I'll put ESTPs on the charming scale. They can get on in tons of different groups of people. Very charming, good with people, high energy. They really care about people. They have a heart for people that maybe you wouldn't expect. Yeah, just overall fun to be around. So if I get into this and any of this seems like it's not you, like ESTPs are probably one of the most likely types to feel like Myers Briggs puts them in a box. And I totally understand the sentiment. And if I can say it in like a precise enough way, because ESTPs can be very precise and good with their language, which I'm not as good at. But it's like there's you, and Myers Briggs can point out a little fraction of you, but you are definitely bigger. It can give you growth points. Maybe you have some blind spots that it could grow you in. Maybe you have some strengths that are blind spots. But beyond that, if there's something that you feel like is not you, don't take it. I do not want to box you in or inhibit your freedom, because you are unique, and there are billions of us on the planet, and there are only 16 types. So, the map is not the territory. It's just a little bit of a bird's eye view, a grayed out version of, what the actual land and territory looks like. If this information does seem incorrect, there also could be a mistype at play. Oftentimes the tests are like one letter off or two letters off. So yeah, you might want to look into the ISTP, the ENTP, the ESFP, or the ESTJ. So Myers Briggs actually stems way back to the early 1900s when Carl Jung termed what are called cognitive functions. So there are 8 ways the people's brain functions, supposedly. And since then, they've hooked people up to the EEG machine, and different parts of the brain will light up more often in other personalities than in other personalities. So for example, with the ESTP, the way the brain looks is they describe it as like a tennis hop, always ready to get into motion, always ready to react. Huge, quick reaction time with ESPs. And that part of the brain will light up way more often in this type than in other people. So the way you figure out the cognitive functions is you look at the middle 2 letters, so kind of the meat of it. So for the ESTP, that's the S and the T. The second letter is considered the perceiving letter. It's how you learn. So for ESTPs, you're taking in, the glasses through which you view the world you're taking in the senses. You're like, ooh, look at that sight, look at that sound, and look at that sound. And basically you're just really oriented toward the senses. You are really in your body, immersed in the moment. Everyone's third letter is considered their judging letter. It's how you make judgments, make decisions, kind of your opinions, how you think things should be. And for you, that's with your thoughts. And you kind of you don't want to be told from authority figures how things should be, but inside, you get your thoughts from the inside. You have your own thoughts and opinions, and you form them internally. You say people should be logical and consistent and truthful and be accurate with their speech and maybe technical with their speech. And this kind of gives you a precision to maybe the tools that you use and the language that you use. So everyone's fourth letter, what that does is it shows, do you show the world your judging letter or perceiving letter? And since you're a P, you show the world your perceiving letter. So we say you extrovert your perceiving letter. And so since your perceiving letter is S, we say you extrovert your senses. You're oriented toward the external senses, not internal senses, but external. The sights out here and everything that's going on out here, like with your body and a ball bounced and there's music playing and stuff like that. And that automatically means you introvert your judging letter. So that means you get your thoughts internally. You're oriented toward your inner thoughts, your inner precision, not necessarily from authorities, but what makes sense logically and deductively to you. And then what the E means out front, it means that you dominantly prioritize the extroverted of those functions. So you dominantly prioritize the external senses, and you secondarily prioritize your internal thoughts. So those make up your first 2 cognitive functions, extroverted sensing and introverted thinking. But everyone does have 4 cognitive functions. So the way you find your third one is it's the direct opposite of your second one. So since your second one is introverted thinking, the opposite of introverted is extroverted, the opposite of thinking is feeling. So your third function is extroverted feeling. So that'll make you somewhat, the back 2 functions are a little less so, but that means you're oriented toward the external feelings, the group's feelings, more than you're oriented around your own feelings. And then your fourth function is the direct opposite of the first function. So since your first function is extroverted sensing, the opposite of extroverted is introverted. The opposite of sensing is intuition. So introverted intuition is your fourth function. So everyone's first function is kind of feel like who they are. They're using it all the time. It's their favorite thing to use. And it's who you feel like you are. It's like your big number 1 strength. So extroverted sensing means you're highly energetic, moving your body, love humor, love anything that's going to put more energy out into the world. So extroverted sensors might tend to like talk louder, tell jokes louder. When they tell jokes, they pay attention to their body language and the pacing of their joke, really into their body. This can cause people with extroverted sensing to be into sports. They could be into music. ESTPs can be into like the technical side of video games, the way that goes. I've seen a lot of ESTPs in tennis. Basically, it means that you're oriented towards your body and your senses. I notice a lot of ESTPs like beer randomly. I don't know if beer like does something to your senses or what. I've noticed a lot of ESTPs, because of extroverted sensing, have kind of hands-on jobs, whether that's like construction or a musician, basically just something, even like a barista, if you really love the fast-paced part of being a barista. I've known a lot of ESTPs can be into cars. That's another example of kind of working with your hands. But yeah, they just love anything that gets their body moving. I notice a lot of ESTPs tend to be in good shape. I can't think of a single ESTP that's overweight, and the ones I know, I have kind of a running list, and I have about 10 people on my list, and they're not particularly muscular, but they're all like thin and in good shape. They're expending so much energy, like they're basically doing cardio 24/7 because they'll walk quickly or they get up. They're constantly just moving. So that's the thing about them. They can't sit. I notice they can't sit for too long. If I'm sitting talking to one for a while, eventually they got to stand up because they just need to move their body. Their second function is introverted thinking, and everyone's second function tends to be kind of an underutilized strength, because since you're an ESTP, it means you're an extrovert, and that means that this function's introverted and it's not your favorite thing to go to. No one's second function is kind of like their favorite to go to, but it's really a potential strength, and you are using it already. I mean, you already use it for sure, but it's just a matter of like, do you use it as much as you could be using it? Because introversion and extroversion are both needs in people's life. They give you two different things, kind of like food and water. And you might have a preference for introversion over extroversion, but you still need both. They give you different things. I mean, introversion will give you a depth and kind of like a conviction about what's true. And extroversion, broadcasts that. It broadcasts the message. So you need the message and you need the tool to broadcast it. And when you have both introversion and extroversion, that's what you have. So introverted thinking is all about how you internally think about things. So you are oriented toward the group's feelings, but you're not as much trustworthy of the group's thoughts. You trust your own internal logic. This is great for ESTPs to develop because, surprisingly, I find ESTPs, and you might not think this, but I find ESTPs to be kind of people pleasers, or to kind of change themselves depending on who's in the room. And when you get into introverted thinking, it gives you a sense of consistency. You're saying, no matter how these people feel about the topic, this is what I believe, and this is where I stand, and this is what's true to me. And ESTPs are good about, they're fine with having controversial beliefs or saying controversial things. And I think that's kind of the brave part about ESTPs. They're one of the most brave types. Physically, you get a lot of like firefighters or paramedics, but also just with their speech. They have some brave speech. They will say things. Sometimes they do have kind of like a foot in the mouth syndrome. They're the type that like digs themselves in a hole, and that's kind of enjoyable to watch. I find that they're married to FJs, so it's like, if it's like an ISFJ, for example, the ISFJ always be like, stop saying that. What are you doing? And the ESTP is always like, what? What do you mean? And there's always kind of like this like reprimanding going on. The ESTP's like, what the heck? I don't know what I did. And so there's kind of a lot of that, which I kind of feel bad for them for, but also I think they kind of like it. At least from the outside, it seems like ESTPs like to get a rise out of whoever they're married to. But this is what gives you the really technical skill. I know an ESTP that knows like in Smash Bros. Melee, where there's like a book, there's like hundreds of different combinations with a controller, and they know all of it. Technical. It gives you a technical aspect. Or I know an ESTP who's a musician, and they know technically every piece of equipment that's better. Sometimes TI can be, introverted thinking can be into computers, technical equipment, that sort of thing, hardware, software, and they really are into like the technical aspect. What is the best technically? And it gives ESTPs kind of a sense of perfectionism, kind of like doing things well, or like working with a car. They know exactly like kind of like how some ESTPs know how a car works together, and this piece, which will do this, which will do this, which will do this. I know one ESTP that's really into the technical side of like tennis. So they really want a specific tennis racket because, sensory wise, they can tell the difference between two tennis rackets, and they want what's going to be like just this much better. Introverted thinking gets into like splitting hairs. Introverted functions really dig down to clarity, and eventually you're splitting hairs to what is this much better, just like an increment, the tiniest bit better. So everyone's third function tends to be, especially when they're younger, tends to be kind of an overused weakness. The reason it's overused is because it's extroverted and you like being extroverted, but the reason is because weakness kind of is in those back functions. As people get older, I notice that they can like handle those back functions a little bit better, but like if you're in your teens and 20s, that third function is really a sore spot, and I find it's what annoys people. So if someone says, ESTPs are annoying, or any type is annoying, it's usually that third function that's bugging the heck out of people, because it gives everyone in their third function gives kind of a fake flavor for all the personality types. And for ESTPs, that function is extroverted feeling, and so it's oriented toward the group's feelings, the feelings of the environment. I think ESTPs aren't necessarily very clear about their inner feelings. That they're a type that I think doesn't get their feelings hurt very often, because nowhere in these 4 functions is there anything about inner feelings. So that's why they're okay saying truths that are controversial or may seem harsh to some people, because they really just don't get their feelings hurt very often. I think you can make an ESTP mad, but to hurt their feelings and break them down crying, I think is a lot less common. Everyone cries at some point, but it's just not going to be as common with them. And so, they really, you can tell, like, if there's a group of 8 people in a room, they're kind of paying attention to make sure, is everyone doing good? Is the vibe up? Are people smiling? They'll kind of check in with everyone in the group. I notice sometimes if they're kind of in unhealthy relationships with their spouse, it can feel kind of codependent. Like they're always wondering, like, how's their spouse doing? And they're always trying to keep the energy up. And it means they can't share their full opinions, because introverted thinking can be controversial. It's what I think. It's not what do we all think. It's like, what do I think about something? And as soon as you start sharing your opinions, it's going to be controversial. You're going to think something different than other people, and that's going to cause disharmony, maybe. And so what they can tend to do is they might shut off their introverted thinking, and they stop sharing their truths and their beliefs because they've gotten so much messaging that just hurts people's feelings. So they start being a little bit more watered down, and they start just, okay, when I'm in this room, I'm like this, and when I'm in this room, I'm like this, because it keeps the energy good in all these places. But as that goes on over time, they just feel like they're losing themselves. They're like, who really am I? I'm just very depleted. It can make them really busy. I know tons of ESTPs that are incredibly busy because they don't want to let people down. When you're in extroverted feeling, you care about people's feelings, and you don't want to hurt their feelings. And so if you say no, you might feel like they might think poorly of you, or maybe you worry that you're not doing the best that you can because you hold yourself to a high standard. Maybe you worry they're not going to like you, respect you, or for whatever reason you say yes to too many things. And that I've seen some ESTPs get burnt out. That is a very common thing where they really expend so much energy with extroverted sensing on behalf of people with extroverted feeling, and they get so burnt out. They're one of the types that has to learn to be able to say no and to really think about their thoughts and their beliefs, and, not change that depending on who's in the room. If they've said, I'm going to leave my evenings free, that might be a standard that they have. In their inner thoughts, that's something that they know needs to happen. I need to leave my evenings free. They're going to have to be able to say no to people when people ask to hang out, because they're fun to hang out with. People are going to ask them to hang out all the time. They probably have tons of social engagements to draw from at any one time. I know one ESTP that if we ever want to play volleyball, he's the one to contact, because he always is playing. He's got volleyball, spike ball, he's got the stuff going on. And it can be hard because it's fun, but I think it's really in ESTP's best interest to learn how to say no sometimes. I can see extroverted feeling to lead them to somewhat lose integrity, because introverted thinking gives them a high sense, I respect when ESTPs are in introverted thinking, I respect them. But when they lose introverted thinking, sometimes they do things that are just bully-ish. They can tend to be like, especially like in high school, they a lot of times have kind of like a physical prowess about them, and they may use it to bully people. It's kind of like whoever's the strongest in the room is the person that you can't, push back against. I've seen ESTP students, like as a student, I saw like an ESTP, they would just like bully someone in the classroom to get a rise out of other people. It's kind of an extroverted feeling thing. Like, it's going to make these people happy, and the joke's going to be kind of funny, but they don't realize, and I think they probably do feel bad about it. They're like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. If you get an introverted thinking, it makes you reevaluate your actions and things you've done, and check yourself. Like, oh, this is not in alignment with what I feel like to be is a correct action, so I shouldn't have done that. Sometimes ESTPs can come off as know-it-alls without actually having the knowledge to back it up. If you get into introverted thinking, it means you slow down, you spend time by yourself, and, you actually get, clear on your thoughts. But sometimes you just get the vibe that they're just kind of blowing smoke out their butt. You're just like, what are you even saying? But they'll kind of like look down on people. Because of extroverted feeling, they want people to respect them. So then they're like, okay, I'll show you all my knowledge, and that's how you can respect me. But pretty soon they're just going on and on and on, and it's not making sense, and there are holes in what they're saying, and you can just tell they're just blowing smoke. So their last function is introverted intuition. And intuition is one of the ways, it's kind of one of the lenses through which people see the world. Sensors will look at like what's happening right now, and intuition looks at kind of what's not happening, kind of what are the patterns going on here. So introverted intuition means you're looking like inside, and you're looking to the future, and you're saying, what do I want my life to look like maybe 50 years down the road? What's my vision for the future? It could be like, how do I think the stock market is trending? It's going toward the future. But since it's your fourth function, it's the direct opposite of your first function, which means it's not very fun to go to. That's the opposite of being in your body. Extroverted sensing is being in the moment and having fun and having a loud sensory experience. But to then sit back and think about, how's the stock market trending? You kind of dissociate from your body a little bit, and you end up thinking about how something could be, and it takes you out of the present moment. It takes you out of your body, which is like not that fun. Sometimes the way I see this show up for ESTPs is conspiracy theories. I cannot count how many ESTPs I know that are into conspiracy theories. An ESTP listening to this would be like, how do you know it's a conspiracy theory? How do you know? So for an ESTP, what you are good at is looking at what is happening in the sensory world. So if there was an ESTP that thought there was this conspiracy happening, if they went and they got on site and they had footage of it and they saw with their own eyes, this thing is happening, and it's not a conspiracy anymore because there's factual evidence, then I would, be completely willing to admit that I was wrong. But, it's not ESTP's strength to be thinking about what could be happening. And especially, you have to think about where you got your sources from. And if it has to do with extroverted feeling, if it has to do with like your in-group, like I'm thinking of like your political in-group. So if you have no sensory verifiable information for this to be happening, but you got it from your in-group, that's kind of just a red flag. So your beliefs have to come from in here. So as soon as you can get too much on a team, so to speak, with like your friends, that can be kind of like a red flag. But what introverted can give you in a positive way is if you can look to the future positively. Because you have this intuition in the back spot, it makes you tend to look toward the future a little bit negatively, or maybe you just kind of forget about the future. You're just living in your present moment. You have to say to yourself, okay, this is the rule. When I'm going to look to the future, I have to do it in an optimistic light. Otherwise, it's probably not healthy for me to think of something pessimistically like that. It makes you think about like what you want your future to look like. What do you feel like your life purpose is? And then using extroverted sensing, you can build toward it today. They're kind of pulling at the extremes between today and my future. And if you're too oriented on today, you could just be, bopping around, and by the time you get to 50 years from now, you hate all the decisions you made. You felt like you were running ragged and very scattered. If you're too much in the future, you lose the present moment, and all the present moments that build up to 50 years from now are meaningless. And so it's important for ESTPs to get clear on what is important to them. And with introverted thinking, that's one way you can get clear on what is the right thing to do, what makes sense to me, what's logical, what's true, how are my beliefs incorrect? It's introverted, so it's not just challenging everyone else's beliefs, it's challenging your own inner beliefs. How are my beliefs in here incorrect? And challenging yourself over and over and over again. And when I've seen ESTPs challenge themselves, I know one ESTP, she's probably like 45, and she's incredible. Everyone respects her because she has challenged her beliefs for 40 years to a point where she has high integrity now. Everyone respects her so much, and she's so precise with her speech and kind with her language that you almost can't fault her. You can't find fault with them because she already found the fault within herself over the last 40 years, rooted it out, make sure that she got rid of all of her bad beliefs, and she kind of got rid of her party animal side and the saying yes to people too much, and now she has a strong morning routine where she's just like by herself for the first like 3 hours. She has her own business, so she's able to do that. And she really implemented some introverted routines. And so she's highly respectable now. I think sometimes ESTPs can try to fake it till they make it. They want people to respect them. And the way they want people to respect them is to hide all their faults. But that ends up rubbing people the wrong way, you know what I mean? You just have to be open about your faults and then fix them. And then that's how you gain the true respect, is when you really challenge yourself. And so when you can challenge yourself and challenge your beliefs and what you think is true, that helps inform how you want your future to look. And so if you can get into introverted intuition and introverted thinking, you work toward a great future that you are in alignment with, that when you get there, you are glad to be there and you feel proud of yourself. And there's a sense of integrity and respect, which I think is everything that ESTPs want. And that's ESTP's unique contribution to the world. When they can become so highly respectable, they become great mentors, great teachers, great technical trainers, and they really help other people be respectable. They show a high level of integrity and they become role models to other people. And they tell it like it is. They become balanced in a way that they are so integrous themselves as a person that they are absolutely in a place to be able to mentor people and to, help other people along the way. They dealt with the foot in the mouth syndrome and speaking negatively about the future and being the party animal and saying yes to people too much and people pleasing. They dealt with all this stuff throughout their life that now they can help other people become more integrous, because they are absolutely in a position to do that since they have such high integrity and are so worthy of respect themselves. They are one of the most respectable types. I really love the ESTPs. They are so fun-loving, so energetic, but with such integrity. They're in their body and in their thoughts, and they provide a pretty good balance. And at the same time, they are so kind and they care about the people's feelings around them that it makes them just overall a great person to be around, especially if they get into challenging their own beliefs. And I have such high respect for ETPs that challenge themselves more than they challenge other people. That is a incredibly respectable thing to do, that I don't know that I could even reach that level. I mean, that is such a hard thing to do, to challenge yourself more than you challenge other people, but I respect the heck out of that. I do have a Myers Briggs 101 playlist if you're interested in that. I have an Instagram account where I post kind of more bite-sized things, kind of list type things. So if you're interested in any of that, follow me on Instagram. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.